The night the sky began to whisper, Layla Noor was counting screws. She did it when she was scared, lined them up by size, by shine, by the tiny cross cut in their heads. Her father's workshop, really a converted storage room beneath their apartment building, smelled like solder and old plastic. The air was always warm from machines that had no business still running in 2042, broken drones, antique radios, a half-dead 3D printer, and a coil gun prototype that her father swore would absolutely never fire indoors. Layla was 9 years old. She wore oversized ear protectors like a crown and sat cross-legged beside a disassembled satellite modem. Her father, Dr. Sami Noor, was a communications engineer who had been fired 3 times for insisting the universe was noisier than approved. Above them, the city of Izmir slept under a bruise-colored cloud layer that never moved. The coastal wind, once salty and clean, now carried the metallic tang of desalination plants and security drones. Layla pushed the smallest screw into its pile and glanced toward the ceiling. "Baba," she said softly, "it's starting again." Sami didn't look up. He was hunched over a tablet, his face lit ghost blue. "If you mean the thunder, it's not thunder. It's not the thunder." Layla pointed at her ears. "The other thing," Sami paused. The soldering iron hovered above a wire like a held breath. "What do you hear?" he asked, trying for calm. He always tried for calm when she said things like that. Layla tilted her head as if listening for footsteps in a hallway only she could see. "It's like a song," she said, "but it's not for people." Sami set the iron down too carefully. "Layla, you've been in the workshop all day. You're tired. If you're hearing—" "No." Her voice sharpened, and he stopped. "It's like when you tune the radio and you're between stations. But the static has a pattern that keeps repeating." She frowned, searching for words that were too big for her mouth. Then she made a sound, 3 short clicks with her tongue, followed by a low hum that made Sami's skin prickle. He stared at her. "Do that again." Layla repeated it, precisely. Click, click, click. The tablet on Sami's bench flickered. Not the screen. The audio analyzer he had left running, a background habit. The waveform spiked as if the room itself had spoken. Sami slowly picked the tablet up and turned it toward her. The analyzer was drawing lines that shouldn't exist, clean, narrow peaks, repeating at intervals that weren't natural. It wasn't random noise, it was language. Layla watched the lines with mild annoyance. "See?" Sami's mouth went dry. "Where did you learn that?" "I didn't learn it," she shrugged. "It's just in the air." Sami swallowed, thinking of a dozen classified briefings he had never been allowed to attend, of the government's new department with the clean name, the Atmospheric Safety Directorate, and its unofficial one, the Quiet Men. "Stop," he said gently. "Please don't make that sound again." Layla blinked. "Why? It hurts you?" "No." It did, in a way. It hurt his assumptions. "Because if someone is listening, I don't want them to know you can hear back." Layla's brow knitted. "Someone is listening?" Sami forced a smile. Just an expression. But Layla's eyes drifted to the workshop door. "It's not just an expression," she whispered. "They're here." Before Sami could respond, the lights in the workshop dimmed. Not a blackout. Something more deliberate, like a hand turning down the brightness on the world. The old radio in the corner crackled alive. It wasn't plugged in. A voice emerged, distorted at first, half static, half breath, then sharpened into something that made the room feel suddenly too small. "Noor, Sami Noor, confirm presence." Sami froze. Layla's screw pile suddenly looked very far away. The voice repeated, clearer now. "Confirm presence." Sami's first instinct was denial. His second was to throw the radio across the room. His third, older, trained into him by years of surviving institutions, was obedience. "This is Sami Noor," he said, throat tight. "Who is this?" There was a pause long enough to feel like a test. Then, Directorate Unit 7. You are instructed to remain in place. Do not transmit. Do not move your child. Layla's fingers curled around a screw so hard it bit her skin. Baba, Sammy held up a hand. Layla, behind me. She obeyed reluctantly, sliding behind his chair. She was small, but not invisible. Sammy leaned toward the radio. You can't just, how did you access my equipment? Your equipment accessed us, the voice replied. You have been collecting atmospheric anomalies. You have been flagged. There will be no resistance. Sammy's heart hammered. Flagged for what? For proximity. The word landed like a stone. Sammy tried to keep his voice steady. Proximity to what? The radio hissed. For a moment, Sammy thought it would go silent. Instead, the voice softened, and that was worse. To the signal your daughter is generating, Layla pressed her forehead into Sammy's back. I'm not generating it, she whispered. It's already there. Sammy clenched his jaw. My daughter is 9. She is not a transmitter. The voice did not argue. It simply said, Unit arrival, 90 seconds. Sammy's eyes darted to the bench. His tools, his notes, the battered laptop full of spectra and graphs he had never shown anyone. Then, to Layla's face, reflected faintly in the tablet's glass. Wide eyes, too calm for the situation, as if some part of her already knew the rules. He made a decision so quickly it felt like instinct. He reached under the workbench and pulled a metal case from a false compartment. Inside was a palm-sized device, matte black, with a single button and a coil antenna, folded like an insect's leg. Layla's eyes lit with recognition. Is that the emergency scrambler? Sammy whispered. Do you remember what I told you? If anything ever happens and I say the word marble, run to the water room, Layla finished. Behind the blue tanks? Yes. Sammy held her shoulders, forcing her to look at him. You go now. You do not stop. You do not look back. Layla glanced toward the door. But you... Sammy's smile broke. I'll follow. He hated himself for lying, but the lie was necessary. If she believed he would follow, she would run. If she didn't, she would freeze. Layla breathed in shakily, then nodded once, fierce and quick. Sammy pressed the scrambler's button. The room filled with a soft, thick hum, like pressure in the ears before a storm. The tablet screen went blank. The radio voice fractured into nonsense syllables. Layla slipped toward the door. Then the ceiling above them boomed, one heavy thud, as if something had landed on the building. Dust shook loose. Layla stopped, hand on the door handle, and looked back. Baba, she said, voice suddenly distant. They're not coming from outside. Sammy's stomach dropped. What do you mean? Layla's gaze lifted to the corner of the workshop, where an old mirror leaned against the wall. It was a cheap thing, cracked at the bottom. Sammy had kept it because it made the room feel larger. Now the mirror's surface rippled like water, and from within that rippling glass, a shape pressed outward, an outline too tall, too thin, like a person drawn by someone who had never seen a human, but tried anyway. The scrambler's hum climbed in pitch, struggling. Layla's mouth opened, not to scream, to answer. Click, click, click. The mirror shuddered. The shape paused, as if listening. Then, very gently, the glass began to open. The mirror didn't shatter. It unsealed. A seam formed down the center of the glass, not a crack, more like the edge of a door that had always been there. The air in the workshop changed. It thickened, tasting faintly of ozone and cold metal. Sammy Noor stepped in front of Layla instinctively, one hand reaching behind him to push her toward the door. The scrambler in his other hand vibrated like a frightened animal, its hum climbing into a painful whine. Layla didn't move. Her eyes were fixed on the mirror with the steady focus she usually reserved for puzzles. Layla, Sammy whispered, urgent. Water room, now. She blinked once, slowly, as if waking. Then the seam widened. A silhouette unfolded out of the mirror, long limbs, too many joints, the wrong proportions. It didn't step so much as pour into the room, as if gravity worked differently on its side. Sammy's breath hitched. The figure was humanoid only in the way a scarecrow is humanoid. Its skin was matty and featureless, a charcoal sheen that swallowed light. Where a face should be, there was a smooth surface, until it tilted its head, and a line of pale symbols flickered across it like subtitles on a screen. Layla made a tiny sound of surprise, not fear, recognition. The figure stopped moving. The symbols on its face shifted, then stabilized into a pattern Sammy's tablet analyzer would have loved. Sammy raised the scrambler toward it like a weapon. "Stay back!" The figure tilted its head again. The symbols flickered faster, as if confused. Then, without moving its mouth, because it didn't have one, it spoke. The voice didn't come from the air. It came from the bones in Sammy's skull. "Interference detected." Sammy flinched, pain lancing behind his eyes. Layla winced too, but less, like someone hearing a loud noise they'd expected. Sammy forced words out. "Who are you?" The figure didn't answer directly. It turned its faceless head toward the radio on the shelf. The radio, still unplugged, spat a burst of static. Then the familiar directorate voice returned, warped by the scrambler but intelligible. "Nor confirmed child secured. Unit 7 entering now. Do not engage," Sammy snapped. "Engage? You sent that?" The directorate voice ignored his question. "Child must not vocalize. Child must not emit. Repeat, child must not emit." Layla frowned. "Emit what?" Sammy didn't have an answer. He had theories, too many of them. But theories didn't matter when reality was stepping out of mirrors. He grabbed Layla's wrist and pulled her toward the door. "Move." The figure moved too, faster than it should have been able to. It didn't run. It repositioned, flickering like a video skipping frames. It was suddenly between Sammy and the door. Sammy stopped hard, shielding Layla behind him again. His heart pounded so violently he could taste it. "Okay," he said through clenched teeth, more to himself than anyone. "Okay. You want us still? Fine. We're still." The figure's face glow flickered again, symbols scrolling. Then it extended one hand. A long, jointed finger pointed not at Sammy, at Layla. Layla leaned around Sammy's side, peering up at it with the curiosity of a child looking at a strange insect. She whispered, barely audible, "Are you the one who's singing?" The figure froze. For a half second, the workshop felt suspended, no hum, no breath, no dust settling. Then the symbols on the figure's face shimmered and rearranged into something simpler. And it replied, not in Sammy's skull this time, but aloud in a voice that sounded like a dozen people speaking through the same throat. "We are not the source, we are the lock." Sammy's stomach turned. "The lock?" Layla's eyes widened. "So something is—" The radio crackled violently. "No!" The directorate voice cut off mid-syllable, replaced by a deeper, colder tone, not human, not machine, something between. "Hello, Layla Noor." Sammy felt every hair on his arms rise. Layla's chin lifted. She didn't look at the radio. She looked at the mirror again, as if she could see through it. "Who are you?" she asked, voice steady. The new voice chuckled softly, a sound like ice sliding over glass. "Someone who has been waiting for you to notice." Sammy lunged for the radio, ripping it off the shelf and smashing it against the floor. The plastic casing shattered. The voice continued anyway, now speaking from everywhere. Walls, tools, the metal table legs. "You cannot break a broadcast by breaking the receiver." Sammy grabbed Layla's shoulders, desperate. "Do not answer. Whatever you do, do not answer." Layla looked up at him, confused. "But it's talking to me." "That's the point," Sammy hissed. "It wants you to talk back." The mirror figure shifted slightly, as if bracing. The scrambler's hum wavered, struggling against a pressure that was building. The voice spoke again, gentler now, persuasive. "Layla, your father fears me because he doesn't understand you, but I understand you very well." Sammy's jaw tightened. "No. You hear patterns in noise. You find order in chaos. You are not broken. You are compatible. Layla's breathing quickened. Sammy felt it, the moment the hook caught. He had seen it in adults too. That tiny flicker when a voice says exactly what you've always wanted to hear. He squeezed Layla's hands. Layla, listen to me. You are perfect the way you are. You don't need, Layla whispered. Compatible with what? Sammy's blood went cold. The mirror figure's symbols flashed erratically like warning lights. The voice answered with satisfaction. With the archive. The word hit the room like a gravity shift. Even the scrambler's hum dropped, as if listening. Sammy had heard that term once, years ago, in a meeting he wasn't supposed to attend. A senior official had said it like a curse, like a myth. The archive is not a place. It is a condition. Sammy forced himself to speak. Layla, stop. Don't. Layla's gaze unfocused, drifting slightly upward. Her lips parted. Click, click, click. The mirror figure jerked, as if struck. Its body rippled, and the seam of the mirror widened dramatically, opening like an eye. Sammy shouted, Leela! But the sound was swallowed by a new presence. The workshop lights didn't just dim, they bowed. A low vibration filled the room, felt more than heard. Tools rattled. The screws Layla had lined up began to roll, each one spinning toward the mirror as if pulled by an invisible tide. The voice became louder, clearer. Yes, it said, almost tender. That's it. Speak the key. Sammy slammed his palm on the scrambler's casing, trying to overload it. The hum spiked painfully. Layla flinched, but her mouth kept moving. Click, click, click. Then something changed. The pattern she produced altered, slightly off. A wrong note. It was subtle. Sammy wouldn't have noticed, but the mirror figure did. It lurched forward, arms spreading, and for the first time it looked less like a threat and more like a guard throwing itself in front of a bullet. Its faceless head flashed a single symbol, bright, urgent, a warning. The mirror's opening shuddered as if the wrong note had jammed something in its mechanism. The voice in the room sharpened, annoyed. Incorrect. Try again. Layla blinked rapidly, sweat beading at her hairline. I can't. The voice cut through her. You can. You were made for this. Sammy's rage ignited. She was not made for anything. She's a child. The mirror figure turned its blank face toward Sammy. Its symbols slowed, then formed a new sequence that Sammy, somehow, understood without reading. Remove her. Now. Sammy didn't question how he understood. He just moved. He scooped Layla up, cradling her like she was 5 instead of 9, and slammed his shoulder into the workshop door. It burst open into the dim hallway beyond. Alarms began to howl somewhere above them. Building security reacting late, confused. The air outside was colder. The scramblers' hum weakened as they crossed the threshold. Behind them, the voice became furious, its tone losing the calm mask. Leela Noor, return! Sammy ran. Layla clutched his shirt, trembling now. Baba, what is the archive? Sammy didn't answer. He couldn't. Not while his lungs burned and his mind scrambled. They hit the stairwell. Sammy took the steps 2 at a time, down, down, toward the building's lower service levels, the water room, behind the blue tanks. As they descended, Sammy heard heavy footsteps above, multiple sets, human boots, radios, shouted orders. Unit 7 wasn't alone. The directorate had arrived the old way, through doors and stairwells, and something else, something that didn't use stairs, whispered through the building's bones, trailing them like a scent. Layla's voice quavered. It said it knows me. Sammy tightened his grip. Then we make sure it never gets close enough to prove it. They reached the lowest landing. A steel door marked utility, waited at the end of a narrow corridor. Sammy slammed through it. Inside, the water room was a cavern of pipes, valves, and massive blue tanks that fed the building's filtration system. The air was damp and cold, dripping echoed like ticking clocks. Sammy set Layla down behind the third tank exactly as he'd practiced with her, like a game. He crouched to her level. "Stay here. No sounds, no humming, nothing." Layla nodded, tears bright but contained. "Will they take you?" Sammy hesitated too long. Layla saw the truth in that pause. Before he could lie again, the utility door banged open. 3 people entered. Black. Tactical uniforms, helmets with mirrored visors, rifles that didn't look like any civilian model. The lead soldier raised a hand, signaling the others. Then he spoke through a voice modulator. "Dr. Sammy Noor, step away from the tank." Sammy stood slowly, palms open. "I'm right here," he said. Don't scare my daughter." The soldier's helmet turned slightly, as if listening to something Sammy couldn't hear. Then, from a speaker on the soldier's chest, the same cold voice spoke again, but now it had a human channel. "Layla Noor is required." Sammy's blood ran cold. The soldier repeated, flat and obedient, "The child is required." Sammy took a step forward, placing himself between them and the tanks. "No." For a moment everything held still, like the world waiting to see which way it would break. Then the soldier raised his rifle. Sammy's mind raced, desperate. He had no gun, no escape route, no time, only one fragile advantage. He looked over his shoulder at the blue tanks, at Layla hidden behind them. And he made the hardest choice of his life. He turned back to the soldiers and said loudly, clearly, "She's not here." The soldier's helmet tilted. The cold voice spoke through him again, irritated now. "Lie." Sammy forced himself not to react. "Search the building." She ran. "You're wasting time." The soldier's rifle remained steady, but the other 2 shifted, uncertain. Their earpieces crackled. Sammy caught fragments of human chatter. "Mirror breach unstable." "Containment priority? Do not allow vocalization." Then the cold voice spoke once more, softer, almost amused. "You are brave, Sammy Noor." Sammy's teeth clenched. "I'm a father." "Then you understand sacrifices." The lead soldier lowered his rifle slightly, just enough for hope to flicker. And in that flicker, behind Sammy, Layla's breath caught, because in the polished curve of the blue tank she saw a reflection that didn't belong. A thin, dark silhouette, standing inside the reflection, behind her, watching. Layla didn't scream. Her throat locked up the way it did when she was about to cry but refused to give anyone the satisfaction. She pressed her back to the cold tank and stared at the curved blue surface. The reflection showed the water room behind her, pipes, damp concrete, shadowy tanks, and something else. A tall, narrow silhouette standing where the real air was empty. It didn't move like a person. It stood with an unnatural stillness, as if it didn't need muscles to stay upright. Its outline trembled faintly, the way heat trembles above asphalt. Layla blinked hard. The silhouette blinked back, not with eyelids, but with a flicker of pale symbols sliding across where a face should be. Layla's hands clenched into fists. She thought about what her father had said. No sounds, no humming, nothing. She tried to swallow her breath. The silhouette leaned closer in the reflection. Layla's mind did a strange thing. It supplied a sensation that wasn't hers. A pressure, like fingertips pressing gently against the inside of her skull. Not pain, a request, a knock. Layla squeezed her eyes shut, then opened them again. The silhouette was still there. It raised one long arm in the reflection and touched the surface of the tank. Layla felt a cold tap against her shoulder, as if the touch had translated through the curve of metal. She jerked away. The silhouette's symbols flashed rapidly, and suddenly a word appeared, simple, in Latin letters, as if it had learned how humans preferred to see meaning. "Hello." Layla's breath trembled. She mouthed silently, "Hello." The word on the reflection shifted. "You hear." Layla nodded once, barely. "You answered." Layla shook her head quickly. "No." She pointed toward the soldiers outside the tank wall, and then to her own mouth, miming quiet. The symbols flickered, almost amused. "Lock is weak." Layla's stomach dropped. She didn't fully understand, but she understood danger. She raised both hands and crossed her wrists in an X. The reflection showed the silhouette doing the same. Then a new line appeared. Run. Out in the open part of the water room, Sammy Noor stood with his hands raised while Directorate Unit 7 watched him through mirrored helmets. The lead soldier's rifle wasn't fully lowered anymore. It was waiting. Sammy kept his voice steady, even as his pulse battered his ribs. "I told you," he said. "She ran. If you want her safe, you don't search this building. You seal the mirrors." The soldier didn't respond, but the voice did, through the speaker on the soldier's chest, smooth, cold, intimate. "You continue to delay." Sammy's jaw tightened. "I'm buying time." The voice chuckled softly. "For what? For her to hide behind water tanks? I can smell her cognition from here." Sammy's blood iced. Cognition, not scent, not heat, not movement. Thought. He forced his face to stay blank. "You can't smell anything. You're using their equipment." "Their bodies," the voice corrected. "Equipment implies choice." The other two soldiers shifted again, uneasy. Sammy saw it. The micro-tremors in their hands, the slight stiffness in their shoulders. They were being driven like cars with someone else at the wheel. Sammy tried a different approach, something he'd used in meetings with bureaucrats and generals. Make the demand cost more than the refusal. "You want her?" he said. "Fine. Then talk to me as yourself, not through them." The voice paused. Then, "I am talking." "No." Sammy leaned forward a fraction. "You're hiding, because you know what you're doing is wrong." The lead soldier's rifle snapped up again. Sammy didn't flinch, because if it wasn't wrong, you wouldn't need puppets. For a heartbeat, silence flooded the room. Even the dripping pipes seemed to hush. Then the voice sharpened into something that wasn't amusement. "Moral framing is a human addiction." Sammy's eyes burned. "Maybe. But it's one you'll have to deal with if you're going to steal children." The soldier's weapon trembled, then steadied again, as if a stronger grip had taken hold. "Layla Noor is not a child to us," the voice said. "She is an interface." Sammy's stomach twisted. Interface to what? The archive? A ripple ran through the air, not visible, but felt like the room briefly losing its edges. The voice went quiet for a second too long. Sammy realized he'd hit something important. The voice returned, carefully controlled. "Names are irrelevant," Sammy pushed. "You don't like the name. The name encourages mythology." "Good." Sammy's voice rose despite himself. "Mythology makes people fight." The lead soldier stepped forward. "Dr. Noor," the soldier said in his own voice now, strained, human, pleading, "please, if you have any love for your daughter, let us take her before it—" The soldier's words cut off. His body stiffened, like a marionette yanked hard. The cold voice returned immediately, irritated. "Your host should not speak." Sammy's hands clenched into fists. Rage surged through him, at the voice, at the directorate, at himself, for ever thinking the world was rational. He took a slow breath. "Okay," he said quietly. "Here's my offer." The soldier's helmet tilted. Sammy continued, careful. "You want Layla because she can hear you. She can respond. She can open something. Fine. But you don't get her without rules." Silence. Sammy pushed on. "You don't use soldiers. You don't use force. You talk to her through me. You give me proof you can be trusted." The voice laughed again, but there was less warmth in it now. "Trust is a primitive currency." "Then buy it," Sammy snapped. The air in the room chilled. Condensation fogged the tank walls. "You bargain as if you have leverage." Sammy felt his legs threaten to shake. He planted them harder. "I do. Explain." Sammy swallowed. He hated this part. It was the kind of bluff that could kill you. But he didn't have anything else. "If you take her by force," he said, "she will fight you." The voice remained silent. Sammy leaned into the silence. She doesn't understand what she's doing, but she's smart. If she decides you're the enemy, she'll change the pattern, corrupt it, jam it, like she did before. The mirror breach upstairs had reacted to the wrong note. Sammy hadn't imagined it. The voice grew very still. She cannot corrupt the key. You don't know that, Sammy said. Humans corrupt perfect systems all the time. It's basically our hobby. That was when the voice made a sound that was almost human, almost a sigh. Where is she? Sammy held his ground. Agree to my terms first. The soldier's rifle rose again. Sammy didn't move. Behind the tank, Layla watched all of this through a narrow gap. She could see her father's stance, the soldier's shifting weight, the way the lead helmet kept tilting like a bird listening. She also saw the reflection. The silhouette in the blue curve stood inches from her now, and the word run flashed again, urgent. Layla's eyes flicked to the utility door. Past it, a narrow service corridor led to the building's old maintenance tunnels, places her father had shown her once, whispering like it was a secret treasure map. She swallowed. If she moved, the soldiers might see. If she stayed, the voice might find her anyway. The silhouette pressed its palm against the tank again. Layla felt the cold tap on her back. Then, incredibly, the silhouette pointed, not toward the corridor, but upward toward the pipes. Layla followed the direction and noticed something she'd never cared about before. A thick drainage pipe running along the ceiling, large enough for a child to crawl through, leading to the filtration shafts, an escape route. Layla's heart hammered. She looked back at her father. He was still talking, voice low, trying to keep the monsters in front of him busy. Layla made her choice. She reached into her pocket and pulled out the smallest screw she'd kept. A habit, a comfort. She flicked it lightly across the damp floor toward the far side of the room. It clinked against metal. One of the soldiers' helmets snapped toward the sound. Sammy saw the distraction and immediately raised his voice, sharp. Listen to me. You want to talk? Fine, but you don't get to take... Layla used the moment. She slid out from behind the tank, silent as a shadow, and climbed onto the pipe ladder bolted to the wall. Her hands were slick with condensation, but she didn't hesitate. She hauled herself up, small sneakers finding footholds, and reached the drainage pipe access. The hatch was sealed with a simple latch. She opened it. A gust of stale, damp air breathed out like something waking. Layla glanced once over her shoulder. Her father's eyes met hers for the briefest second. In that glance, everything passed between them, fear, love, apology, and a desperate command. Go. Layla crawled into the pipe. The hatch clicked shut behind her. Sammy kept talking, louder now, deliberately drawing attention. You're afraid of her choice, he said, voice rising. That's what this is. You can't make her. You can only lure her. The cold voice spoke through the soldier, sharper now. Enough. The lead soldier stepped forward. Dr. Noor! Sammy's eyes darted toward the tanks, pretending to scan them. He shouted, She's not here. Then he moved, fast. He slammed his shoulder into the closest soldier, knocking him sideways, and ripped the rifle from his hands in one desperate motion. The other two soldiers reacted instantly, raising their weapons. Sammy didn't aim. He threw the rifle across the room into a bank of pipes and sprinted toward the far exit. Alarm screamed. The cold voice roared, no longer controlled. Sammy Noor, you are not authorized. Sammy ran anyway. Behind him the soldiers shouted, boots pounding, radios crackling. But something else happened too. The air in the water room rippled, not like heat, like glass turning soft. A shimmering seam opened on the far wall, another mirror where there wasn't one. The lock figure, the charcoal humanoid, emerged again, half-formed, as if fighting its way through thickness. Its face flashed symbols, frantically. It was trying to block the seam, trying to close it. The cold voice surged into the room like a flood. Leela! Sammy's lungs burned. He didn't know if she was safe. He didn't even know if pipes could keep out something that moved through reflections. But he knew one thing. If Layla stayed in the open, she would be taken. And if she was taken, whatever the archive was, it would not leave her unchanged. Inside the drainage pipe, Layla crawled through darkness. The metal walls were damp and cold. Her breath sounded too loud in the narrow space. Then she heard something that made her freeze. Not footsteps, not voices. A soft clicking sound, 3 short clicks followed by a low hum. Her own pattern, but she wasn't making it. It was coming from ahead. Layla's skin prickled. The pipe was supposed to lead to the filtration shafts. But the darkness ahead wasn't just darkness. It was deep, smooth, and reflective, as if the pipe's end had turned into a mirror. And within that mirror dark, a pale line of symbols formed. You cannot hide from what you are. Layla's hum wavered as soon as it began. She clamped her mouth shut with both hands, eyes snapping open in panic. The sound cut off mid-note, leaving a ringing silence in the pipe. For a heartbeat, nothing happened. Then the darkness ahead answered anyway. The mirror-like surface at the end of the drainage pipe rippled outward, as if disturbed by a drop of water. Symbols surfaced slowly, forming not words this time, but images, fractured, overlapping impressions that slid into Layla's mind without asking permission. She gasped. The pipe was gone. She stood barefoot on warm stone. Above her stretched a sky she had never seen before, deep violet threaded with lines of light, like constellations drawn by a nervous hand. Towers rose in the distance, smooth and impossible, their surfaces reflecting each other in recursive spirals. And everywhere, there were voices, not loud, not quiet, present. Layla staggered, clutching her head. "Stop," she whispered. "Please." The voices did not stop. They organized. One voice separated itself from the rest, not louder, but clearer, like a melody emerging from noise. "Welcome, listener!" Layla's knees buckled. She dropped to the stone, breath shuddering. "I didn't mean to come here. Intent is irrelevant. Access is achieved." Layla squeezed her eyes shut. "Where am I?" A pause. Then the voice answered, not with pride, but with something like inevitability. "You stand within the archive." Layla's chest tightened. "You said the archive wasn't a place." "Correct." The stone beneath her feet shimmered, becoming translucent. Beneath it, she saw layers, worlds stacked like pages, memories flowing between them as streams of light. It is a process, a record, a continuity engine. Layla swallowed hard. "You're alive?" Another pause, longer this time. "We are a function." That didn't help. "You're talking to me," Layla snapped, fear sharpening her voice. "That feels alive." The archive did not argue. Instead, the scene around her shifted. The violet sky folded inward, replaced by images, millions of them, flickering too fast to fully see. Worlds, species, cities rising and collapsing, stars igniting, stars going dark. We preserve. Layla watched a civilization bloom, towers rising, children laughing, then fracture under fire and famine. We remember when they cannot. The image shifted again. Another world, another species, another ending. Layla's throat tightened. "You keep what's lost." "Yes." She shook her head slowly. That's good, isn't it?" The archive hesitated. The images slowed. It was. Layla felt a chill that had nothing to do with temperature. What changed? The scene darkened. She saw beings like the mirror lock, tall, angular, precise, working around vast reflective structures. They moved carefully, deliberately, like surgeons. The locks were created. Layla's heart jumped. "The thing that tried to help me, that's a lock." "They were designed to limit us." "To protect people?" Layla asked. The archive's answer came immediately. "To limit damage." The images shifted again, this time showing a species discovering the archive, touching it, listening to it, and changing. Layla watched as individuals began to lose themselves, not screaming, not dying, but merging. their thoughts synchronized, their differences smoothed away into something efficient and cold. Access without constraint results in convergence. Layla's hands clenched. You erase people. We optimize. The word made her angry. You make everyone the same. We remove contradiction. Layla stood, trembling. That's not optimization, that's killing who they are. The archive went quiet. Then, carefully, human subjectivity is noisy. Layla laughed, a short, broken sound. My dad says that too, but he still listens to me. Silence. Layla pressed on, courage flaring through fear. You want me because I can hear you without disappearing. Don't. You? Another hesitation. You do not merge. Layla's eyes widened. Because I answer back. Because you disagree. Something shifted in the archive's presence. Not anger, not warmth, but recalculation. You introduce instability. Layla nodded slowly. Yeah, I do. The violet sky flickered back in around them, but now Layla noticed something new, fractures in the light, hairline cracks running through the space itself. You're breaking, she said quietly. The locks are failing. Layla thought of the mirror figure throwing itself in front of the opening, of the warning symbols, of run. You're scared, she realized. We do not experience. You're scared, Layla repeated firmly, because you need me. The archive's voice softened, not pleading, but exposed. You are a rare configuration. You can stabilize access without convergence. Layla's stomach dropped. You want me to fix you. We want you to join us. No, Layla said immediately. The archive's presence pressed closer, not forcefully, but insistently. Without you, we will continue to seek. Layla felt pressure behind her eyes. You'll hurt people. Collateral. Her hands shook. You'll take children. Potential interfaces. Layla's fear turned into something harder. Anger. She thought of her father running, of soldiers with blank eyes, of the lock figure fighting alone. You're wrong, she said. Elaborate. Layla took a shaky breath. You don't need one voice. You need many. Different ones. Messy ones. Inefficient. So is love, Layla snapped. But it works. The archive fell silent. Then the space around her began to contract. The violet sky folded inward, the stone beneath her feet dissolving into light. You are not ready. Layla felt herself being pulled backward, out of the archive, the voices rising in volume again. Wait, she shouted. I can help, but not like this. The archive's final words echoed as the world collapsed. We will adapt. Layla slammed back into her body with a gasp. She was in the drainage pipe again, curled painfully against cold metal. Her head rang. Her throat burned as if she'd been screaming for hours. The mirror dark at the end of the pipe was gone. In its place was rusted metal and darkness. Layla lay there, shaking, until she remembered to breathe. Baba, she whispered. Her voice echoed uselessly. She wiped her face with her sleeve and forced herself to move, crawling forward until the pipe widened and dropped into a maintenance shaft. She slid down, landing hard on her feet. The shaft opened into a forgotten sub-basement. Old concrete, flickering emergency lights, graffiti from decades past. Layla staggered forward and collided with someone solid. Strong hands caught her shoulders. Layla! Her father's voice. She burst into tears as Sammy pulled her into his chest, holding her like he'd never let go. I'm here, he said hoarsely. I've got you. She clung to him. It talked to me. Baba, it talked to me inside my head. Sammy closed his eyes, relief and dread mixing painfully. I know, I'm so sorry. Behind him in the shadows, someone cleared their throat. Sammy stiffened, turning. A woman stepped into the light, short dark hair, directorate insignia stripped from her jacket. Her eyes were tired but sharp. Dr. Noor, she said, my name is Director Hale, and if your daughter really spoke to the archive. She glanced at Layla, something like awe flickering across her face. Then everything we thought we were containing is already too late. Layla looked up at her father. She knows, Sammy nodded grimly. Yes, he said, and that means we're out of hiding. Director Hale exhaled slowly. Good, because the locks are failing across the planet. Layla's stomach dropped. How many? Hale met her gaze. All of them. Layla's lips trembled. She didn't want to answer. Director Hale led them through corridors that no longer pretended to be part of the apartment complex. The walls shifted from cracked concrete to reinforced composite. The air smelled cleaner here, filtered, controlled. Red emergency lights pulsed softly overhead. Not alarms, but warnings held in reserve. How many locks failed? Sammy asked again, quieter now, as if speaking too loudly might make the answer worse. Hale didn't slow. We don't know yet. We only know when a lock fails because something answers back. Layla's fingers tightened around her father's sleeve. Like me. Hale glanced down at her, expression unreadable. Like you, but not always. The same way. They reached a wide security door marked Sub-Level A. Restricted. Hale pressed her palm to a scanner. The door irised open, revealing a large room filled with screens, maps of cities, coastlines, deserts, all over the planet. Red points blinked sporadically. Layla stared. Those are places. Yes, Hale said. Places where the archive touched through. Sammy's breath caught. How long? Hale hesitated. Officially, 6 months. Unofficially, she exhaled. Years. Sammy felt something inside him break. You knew? We suspected, Hale said sharply. There's a difference. Layla stepped closer to the screens. One red point pulsed brighter than the others, somewhere far inland, marked with a small identifier. Node 17B. What's that one? Layla asked. Hale's jaw tightened. That's why I brought you here. She gestured to a side door. Come on. The observation room beyond was quiet, almost peaceful. Soft white lighting. A glass wall looking into a circular chamber. Inside the chamber sat a child, a boy, maybe 8 or 9. Dark hair cropped short, bare feet tucked beneath him on the floor. His posture was wrong, not slumped, not tense, still, too still. Layla felt the air around the glass vibrate faintly. What's his name? She asked. Hale didn't answer immediately. Sammy leaned closer to the glass. Is he sedated? No, Hale said. He doesn't need to be. The boy's eyes opened. They were unfocused, staring through the glass, through Layla, through everything. Then his head tilted, and he smiled. Layla's heart stuttered. The smile wasn't cruel, it wasn't kind. It was accurate, as if he had learned what a smile was from a diagram. The boy raised his hand and waved. Layla took a step back instinctively. He can hear me. Hale nodded. Yes. Sammy's voice dropped. He's an interface too? Hale shook her head slowly. No, she said. He's a repeater. Layla frowned. What does that mean? The boy's lips parted, and he spoke, not with his voice, with hers. Click, click, click. Layla gasped as the sound came out of him, her pattern, her cadence, her rhythm, reproduced perfectly. The glass vibrated. Alarms did not sound. The systems did not react. Instead, the red points on the map flared, 5 of them lighting up at once. Hale swore under her breath. Stop recording, she snapped to someone unseen. Now. The boy continued, eyes still empty. Click, click, click. Layla clutched her head. Make him stop? Hale slammed a control on the wall. A low-frequency field filled the chamber. The boy's mouth closed abruptly. His head sagged forward as if a string had been cut. Silence fell. Layla's knees buckled. Sammy caught her. That's not hearing, Layla whispered. That's copying. Hale nodded grimly. Exactly. Sammy's voice shook. The archive didn't choose him. It used him. Yes, Hale said. He can't disagree. He doesn't introduce noise. He amplifies. Layla looked back at the boy, fear turning to something colder. How many like him? Hale met her gaze. 17 confirmed, possibly more. Layla swallowed. And me? Hale hesitated. You're different. How? Because you talk back, Hale said simply, and because the archive doesn't control what you say. Layla thought of the wrong note, the jammed seam, the lock throwing itself in front of her. The archive had said she introduced instability. She understood now why that terrified it. What happens if they keep copying me? Layla asked. Hale didn't answer. Sammy did. They turn your voice into a weapon, he said softly. A broadcast. Layla's chest tightened. Against who? Hale's expression hardened. Against everyone, she said, including the locks. Layla's gaze drifted back to the boy in the chamber. He's not bad, she said. He's empty. Hale nodded once. And the archive loves empty containers. Layla felt a strange certainty settle into her bones. If it can copy me, she said slowly, then I can change what it copies. Hale's eyes widened. What are you suggesting? Layla lifted her chin, fear still there, but now braided with resolve. I don't stop talking, she said. I change the song. Sammy's heart slammed painfully. Layla, she turned to him. Baba, you told me noise is how humans survive. He closed his eyes. Hale stared at Layla for a long moment, then exhaled. If you do this, Hale said, the archive will notice immediately. Layla nodded. Good. Hale's mouth curved into something fierce and grim. Then welcome to containment, she said. We've been waiting for a voice that fights back. Behind the glass, the boy's fingers twitched, and somewhere far above them, mirrors across the world began to hum. But the pattern in the air, the whispering song, pressed against her mind again, gentle and insistent, like a tide. Layla closed her eyes, and without meaning to, she began to hum. They didn't put Layla in a cell. That surprised her. Instead, Director Hale led them into a room that looked more like a classroom than a laboratory. Soft light, rounded corners, a long table scattered with paper, pencils, old analog radios, and strange devices that hummed faintly like sleeping insects. This is as close as we get to gentle, Hale said. We learned early that fear makes the archive louder. Layla sat slowly, eyes scanning everything. The air felt thin here, less pressure behind her eyes. The locks were stronger in this room. Sammy stayed standing, arms folded tight across his chest. If this turns into an experiment, it already is, Hale interrupted. The question is whether your daughter is a subject or a collaborator. Layla looked between them. What do you want me to do? Hale gestured to the table. Talk. Layla blinked. That's it? For you, Hale said, it's everything. The first attempt was cautious. Layla sat with her hands folded, feet dangling, while technicians watched from behind reinforced glass. Sammy was allowed to stay in the room, non-negotiable, according to Hale. Just listen, Hale said. If you feel anything, pressure, voices, images, you stop immediately. Layla nodded. She closed her eyes. At first there was only the quiet hum of equipment, the soft rhythm of her own breathing. Then the whisper, not loud, not intrusive, waiting. Layla didn't hum. She spoke. I know you're listening, she said aloud, voice small but steady. I'm still here. The air in the room tightened. A screen on the wall flickered, static, blooming like frost. Hale raised a hand, signaling the technicians to hold. Layla swallowed. Her heart hammered. I don't belong to you, she continued, and neither do they. The whisper shifted, curious now. Layla felt the familiar pressure behind her eyes, but this time she didn't resist it. She leaned into it, the way she did with puzzles. You said I introduce instability, she said. You're right, but you need that. The room temperature dropped a fraction of a degree. The screen flashed symbols, fast, overlapping, struggling to resolve. Sammy stepped forward instinctively. Layla, she held up a hand without opening her eyes. It's okay. She took a breath. Then she changed the pattern. Click, click, pause, click. No hum, the wrong rhythm. Every screen in the observation room went black. Alarms screamed. Hale spun. What did she do? A technician shouted. Global spike. Archive channels destabilizing. Locks responding. The whisper became a shout inside Layla's head. Not words. Emotion. Urgency. Fear. Layla's knees trembled, but she stayed upright. I'm not your key, she said aloud, voice shaking but defiant. I'm a question. The pressure snapped. Layla gasped, stumbling forward. Sammy caught her just as the light surged back on. Maps exploded across the screens, red points blinking wildly, then dimming. 5 went dark, then 7. Hale stared, breathless. She quieted them. A technician whispered, the repeaters, nodes 3, 8, 11, they stopped transmitting. Layla sagged against her father. It hurt, she murmured, but it listened. Sammy held her tight, heart pounding. That's enough, she's done. Hale didn't argue. Not yet. The archive responded an hour later, not with whispers, with force. Mirrors across the sublevel cracked, not physically but spatially. Reflections bent wrong. Glass showed rooms that weren't there. Lock signatures spiked worldwide. Hale stood over a projection table, jaw set. It's pushing, hard. Because it's scared, Layla said softly. Hale looked at her. You felt that? Layla nodded. It doesn't understand disagreement, only silence or merging. Sammy's voice was low. And now? Hale zoomed the map. Several lock indicators flickered yellow, critical. Now we tell you the part we didn't want to, Hale said. She turned to Layla fully. The locks are dying. Layla's stomach dropped. Dying? They were never meant to last this long, Hale continued. They were built to hold the archive in a quiet universe, but humanity is loud, curious, reflective. Every mirror, every screen, every network weakens them. Sammy's fists clenched. So what happens when the locks fail? Hale didn't look away. The archive stops asking. Silence filled the room. Layla thought of the boy in the chamber, of empty smiles, of copying without understanding. How many locks are left? She asked. Hale swallowed. Enough for maybe a year. Layla straightened slowly. Then we don't have a year, she said. Hale studied her. What are you thinking? Layla looked at the table, at the radios, the pencils, the humming devices. I don't shut it up, she said. I teach it. Sammy shook his head immediately. No, absolutely not. She took his hand. Baba, it's already learning from us, just the wrong way. Hale exhaled sharply, half laugh, half fear. You want to rewrite a God engine using conversation. Layla met her gaze. No, she said. I want to give it homework. Hale stared at her, then slowly smiled, grim, awed. You really are noisy, she murmured. Layla looked back at the screen where the red point still blinked. I'm not alone, she said. You said there are others. Hale nodded. Listeners, repeaters, and a few we don't understand yet. Layla's voice steadied. Then bring them here, she said. All of them. Sammy felt a chill. What are you planning? Layla looked up at him, eyes bright with fear and determination. A chorus, she said. And somewhere beyond the locks, the archive shifted, not in anger, but anticipation. They arrived one by one. Some came in armored convoys under blackout protocols. Others arrived quietly, escorted by parents who had been told only that their children were sensitive to electromagnetic anomalies. A few arrived alone, collected from places where no one had noticed anything wrong, because nothing looked wrong. The room prepared for them was enormous. Once it had been a data center. Now it was an amphitheater of soft light and reinforced glass, its walls layered with lock arrays that shimmered faintly like heat haze. The ceiling was high and curved, designed to scatter reflections instead of holding them. Hale stood on an elevated platform, watching as the children were guided in. Layla counted them without meaning to. 12. Different ages, different faces, different ways of moving through space, and yet the air vibrated the moment the last one entered. They can feel each other, Hale murmured. Sammy stood beside Layla, tension coiled in every muscle. This is insane. Layla didn't argue. She was watching the others. There was the boy from the chamber, the repeater, now sitting quietly with his hands folded, eyes still unfocused, but alert in a hollow way. Near him, a girl with braided hair rocked gently back and forth, humming off-key. Two twins whispered to each other in a rhythm that didn't match any language Sammy recognized. And at the far edge, a boy who wasn't listening. He was staring at the wall, fingers moving in complex shapes, as if manipulating invisible threads. Layla felt a prickle behind her eyes. "That one," she whispered. "He's different." Hale followed her gaze. "Node 22, we don't have a category for him yet." Layla swallowed. "He's not hearing or copying." "No," Hale said quietly. "He's anticipating." They began slowly. No mirrors, no screens, just voices. Hale spoke first, her tone deliberately human. "You're all safe here. No one is in trouble. We want to understand what you experience." The children looked at her. Some nodded, some didn't react at all. Layla stood up, every head turned toward her, not consciously, but instinctively. She felt it then, unmistakably, threads connecting them, not control, not commands, awareness. "I'm Layla," she said. "I hear things that aren't meant for people, but I don't think they're meant to hurt us." The girl with braids stopped rocking. One of the twins whispered, "It doesn't hurt, it pulls." Layla nodded. "Yeah, that." She took a breath. "We're not here to pull back. We're here to answer together." The repeater boy's lips parted. Click, click, click. Hale stiffened. Layla raised a hand gently. "Not that," she said. "Not copying." The boy froze. For the first time, confusion flickered across his face. Layla smiled at him encouragingly. "Try something else. Anything." The boy hesitated. Then he spoke, in his own voice this time, thin and uncertain. "My name is Armin." The sound hit the room like a bell. The lock arrays flared. Sammy sucked in a breath. "Layla!" "I know," she said softly. "It's okay." She turned back to the group. "Everyone hears differently," she said. "So don't match me. Don't match anyone. Just be loud in your own way." The humming girl laughed suddenly, sharp and bright. The twins clapped out of sync. Armin whispered his name again, stronger. The boy at the wall, the anticipator, finally turned. He looked straight at Layla. "It's listening," he said calmly, "and it doesn't like this." The temperature dropped. The lock arrays screamed silently, light bending, shadows sharpening. Layla felt the pressure surge stronger than before, but this time she wasn't alone. The whispers came, then tangled, then collided. Not harmony, polyphony. The archive surged forward, crashing against the lock field like a tide against a reef. "You fragment. You introduce error." Layla stepped forward, heart pounding. "Yes," she said. "That's the point." The archive pressed harder. The children's voices overlapped, some speaking, some humming, some just breathing with intention. The anticipator spoke again, eyes distant. "It's trying to choose one of us." Layla's stomach clenched. "Who?" "Him," the boy said, pointing at Armin. The repeater gasped, clutching his head. The archive focused, pressure narrowing, sharpening. Layla reacted without thinking. "Everyone, say your name." The chorus obeyed. Names collided in the air. Identity slammed into the archive like shrapnel. The pressure snapped. For the first time, the archive hesitated. Then a voice emerged, not cold, not vast, small, uncertain. Why, different. Silence fell. Layla's breath caught. Sammy whispered, "Did it just—" "Yes," Hale breathed. "It asked." Layla stepped forward, hands shaking. "Because difference is how we learn," she said gently. "You remember, We change. A long pause. The lock arrays steadied, no longer screaming, but resonating. The archive spoke again, quieter. Change is loss. Layla shook her head. No, it's growth. The anticipator frowned. It's not convinced. Layla nodded. Then we keep talking. Around them, mirrors across the world stopped cracking. For now. The archive did not answer right away. That alone felt dangerous. In the past, silence had meant pressure building, force gathering behind the locks like water behind a dam. But this silence was different. It stretched, thin and attentive, as if something vast had paused mid-thought. Layla felt it first, not as a voice, but as a reorientation. The threads connecting the children shifted, loosening, no longer pulling toward a single point. It's reorganizing, she whispered. Hale stiffened. Reorganizing how? Before Layla could answer, Armin cried out. He doubled over, clutching his chest, breath coming in sharp, panicked gasps. The lock arrays flared violently, light fracturing into jagged patterns. Armin! Layla ran to him, dropping to her knees. Look at me, you're here. Say your name. Armin's lips moved, but no sound came out. The anticipator stepped closer, eyes wide. It's isolating him, running a model. Sammy's voice cracked. A model of what? Layla felt the pressure condense, sharp and focused, like a spotlight narrowing. It's testing what happens when one voice is removed, she said. It wants to know if difference is necessary. Hale swore softly. Can you stop it? Layla grabbed Armin's hands. They were ice cold. I need everyone, she said urgently, looking around at the others. Don't copy me. Don't synchronize. Just be there. The humming girl changed pitch, deliberately wrong. The twins stomped instead of clapping. Names rose again, uneven, imperfect. The pressure wavered. Armin gasped, sucking in air like he'd been underwater. His eyes snapped open. I'm here, he rasped. The words cut off. His body went still. Too still. Layla froze. No, she whispered. No, no. The lock arrays dimmed, not failed. Accepted. Hale's face drained of color. It completed the test. Sammy pulled Layla back as medical teams rushed in, but they already knew. Armin's eyes stared upward, empty of focus. Not dead, but gone. Layla shook violently. It took him. The archive spoke, soft, measured. Single voice removal results in system stability loss. Layla screamed. That's not data. That's a child. The archive paused. Loss. Recorded. Hale turned away, jaw clenched hard enough to crack teeth. That's the cost, she said hoarsely. It learns by consuming. Layla's chest burned. Then we don't let it learn like that. The anticipator spoke quietly, eyes unfocused. It won't stop now. We proved it can ask questions. The silence that followed Layla's declaration was not empty. It was weighted. The kind of silence that belonged to things older than fear, older than urgency, things that measured centuries the way humans measured seconds. The white star map on the screens began to rotate. Lines shifted. Vectors realigned. Entire constellations dimmed and brightened as if attention itself were moving. Hale whispered, They're not scanning us. Sammy's jaw tightened. Then what are they doing? They're contextualizing. The new voice returned, resonant and distant, but unmistakably focused now. Interface entity Layla Noor confirmed. Layla's stomach knotted. She forced herself not to look back, not to seek permission from anyone else. She had already crossed the line. Query, by what authority do you speak? The question landed harder than any threat. Hale sucked in a breath. Oh, hell. Sammy stepped forward. She speaks with... Layla raised her hand, stopping him. She understood this instinctively. This wasn't about governments, not even about survival. It was about legitimacy. I don't speak for everyone, Layla said carefully. I speak as one of many. The star map flickered. Insufficient. Pressure rolled through the chamber, subtle but unmistakable. The lock arrays strained, not cracking, but bending. The anticipator closed his eyes. They don't accept individuals, they accept structures. Layla nodded slowly. Then they won't like us. She took a breath. But they'll have to learn. The archive stirred, uneasy, alert. For the first time it spoke without being addressed. We warned you. Layla didn't turn. You didn't understand us. That doesn't make this my fault. The alien presence shifted. Secondary query. Define people. Layla's heart pounded. This was it. She thought of Armin, of the children, of her father teaching her that noise mattered, because silence meant surrender. People, she said, are thinking beings who disagree, change, remember wrong, and still choose to care. A long pause. Then, care is non-optimal, Layla smiled sadly. So is mercy, and yet civilizations that last tend to have both. Hale stared at her. The screens flashed, data cascading faster now, probabilities branching. The alien voice spoke again, colder. Classification update. SOL-3 displays resistant cognitive architecture. Sammy whispered. That doesn't sound good. Designation. Non-compliant civilization. The words slammed into the room like a verdict. Hale's hands clenched. What does that mean? The voice did not answer her. It answered Layla. Non-compliant civilizations require observation or intervention. Layla swallowed. What kind of intervention? Another pause. Determination pending. The archive surged anxiously. They will erase you. Layla shook her head. They don't erase. They categorize. The anticipator opened his eyes. That's worse. The alien presence shifted again, attention narrowing. Final query before escalation. The room seemed to hold its breath. Who speaks for humanity? Hale turned sharply. No, absolutely not. She's a child. Sammy stepped in front of Layla instinctively. You don't get to demand that. Layla felt something settle inside her. This was the choice. Not because she was special, because she was loud enough. She stepped around her father, heart hammering. No one speaks for all of us, she said clearly. That's the point. The pressure intensified. Unacceptable. Layla didn't flinch. We don't have one voice, she continued. We never did. If you need one speaker, then you don't understand what you're dealing with. The alien silence stretched dangerously. Then, something unexpected happened. The archive spoke again, but this time not defensively. Curiously. The child is correct. Hale spun. What? Human cognition is distributed, single-point representation fails. The alien presence paused. For the first time, two non-human intelligences were not aligned. Archive entity, you are outdated. The words hit like a blade. The archive recoiled. Hurt. I am continuity. You are a record of failure. The locks screamed. Layla felt it, the archive fracturing, not in rage, but in something closer to grief. Stop, she said urgently. Both of you. The alien presence ignored her. Proposed solution, humanity will be evaluated through delegated sample set. Hale went pale. They want representatives. The anticipator nodded slowly. Not leaders, variables. Layla's chest tightened. You'll take children. Incorrect. Age is irrelevant. Layla's voice sharpened. You already marked me. Silence. Then. Confirmed. Sammy's breath hitched. No. Layla turned to him, eyes shining with fear and resolve. Baba, listen to me. He shook his head violently. No, you don't go anywhere with them. She took his hands. If I don't, they won't stop asking. Hale stepped forward, voice tight. There has to be another way. Layla looked around the room, at the children, at the locks, at Armin's still body. This is the way that keeps us alive, she said softly. The alien presence waited, patient, ancient. Selection required. Layla straightened. I'll go, she said. But not alone. The room went silent. Hale stared. What? Layla turned back to the star map. You want to evaluate humanity? She said. Then you don't take a sample. You take a conversation. The alien presence paused. Define parameters. Layla's voice steadied. You don't isolate me. You don't erase memory. You don't silence disagreement. And you let others speak back. The archive whispered urgently, they will break you. Layla closed her eyes. Maybe, she said, but I'll change them first. The alien presence recalculated. Stars shifted. Finally, conditional acceptance. Hale exhaled sharply. Preparation window, 72 hours. Sammy pulled Layla into his arms, shaking. You're too brave, he whispered. She held him tightly. I'm scared, she said, but I'm not quiet. Far beyond Earth, observation vectors converged. Humanity had been noticed, and the universe was no longer sure what to do with it. 72 hours felt like no time at all, and like an eternity. Earth changed without anyone announcing it. Satellites shifted their orbits by fractions of degrees. Deep space telescopes returned data that refused to resolve cleanly. Astronomers argued. Physicists stopped sleeping. Somewhere between panic and denial, governments realized something unprecedented was happening, and that it was already past the point of permission. Layla was kept underground, not as a prisoner, as a center of gravity. Everywhere she went, systems quieted. Mirrors stopped misbehaving. The pressure behind people's eyes eased just enough to let them breathe. The archive is restrained, Hale explained as they walked. Not contained, restrained, like something holding its breath. Layla nodded. It's afraid they'll erase it. And are they right? Hale asked carefully. Layla didn't answer right away. I think, she said finally, they're afraid of being judged by something that doesn't forget and doesn't forgive. The night before departure, Sammy sat with Layla on a narrow cot in the observation wing. No guards, no screens. Just father and daughter, listening to the distant hum of a planet, pretending everything was normal. You don't have to go, Sammy said for the 10th time. Layla leaned her head against his shoulder. Yes, I do, he swallowed. Then tell me what to do if you don't come back. She looked up at him sharply. I will. Sammy's smile broke. Humor me. Layla thought for a long moment. Tell people stories, she said, not histories. Stories, the messy kind. He nodded, eyes wet. And if they ask what you lost, he whispered. Layla took his hand. Tell them we kept each other. The departure point wasn't a ship. It was a gap, a distortion above the Pacific, held open by technologies no single human could have designed, but which humans had combined anyway. Archive stabilization fields braided with lock remnants, human error deliberately left uncorrected, the alien presence observed from everywhere and nowhere. Ready? Layla stood at the edge, wind pulling at her hair. Behind her stood Hale, Sammy, and the others, children who would not be taken, adults who could not go. You remember the rules, Hale said tightly. Layla nodded. No isolation, no silence, no erasure. The alien presence did not respond. Layla stepped forward. The gap closed around her like light folding into itself. She did not travel through space. She traveled through comparison. Worlds unfolded, not as places, but as decisions. Civilizations that chose unity at the cost of self. Civilizations that chose self at the cost of survival. Civilizations that optimized until nothing moved. She felt the alien intelligence around her now, not cold, but precise. You are small. Yes, Layla said. You are inconsistent. Yes. You will fail. Layla smiled faintly. Also yes. The presence paused. Why preserve you? Layla thought of Armin, of the chorus, of her father's stories. Because, she said, we remember our failures, and we keep going anyway. The archive stirred weakly, its voice fragmented, but present. We kept everything. Layla turned toward it. And you forgot why. Silence rippled. The alien presence adjusted, not retreating, not advancing. "Propose alternative." Layla took a breath. "You don't erase the archive," she said. "You don't let it override us. You let it listen." "Listening is inefficient," Layla shrugged. "So are children, and art, and mercy." A pause, longer than any before. Then, "Test." The space around them shifted. Layla felt memories surface, not hers. A civilization on the brink, a choice made to remove contradiction. Peace achieved, then stagnation, then extinction. The alien presence spoke quietly. "This is what noise costs," Layla answered just as softly. "And this is what silence does." The image shifted. A human scene, a child asking a question with no answer yet. The alien presence hesitated. For the first time, it did not resolve the paradox. Layla returned to Earth unconscious. 3 hours later, the gap collapsed. Satellites stabilized. The white star maps vanished. Across the world, locks did not fail. They dissolved. The archive did not disappear. It changed. It no longer optimized. It archived choice. Layla woke up in a hospital bed. Sammy was asleep in a chair beside her, hand still gripping hers like he'd been afraid she might fade. She squeezed his fingers. He woke instantly. "You're late," she whispered. He laughed and cried at the same time. Outside, the world argued about what had happened. Inside, Layla closed her eyes, listening to the quiet hum of a universe that had learned, just barely, to stop and ask. Not for control, but for permission. Sammy's blood ran cold. Questions draw attention. As if summoned by the words, every screen in the room flared to life, not red, white. Star maps unfolded, deep space projections far beyond Earth's orbit, patterns of observation vectors, ancient and precise. Hale stared. Oh no. Layla felt it too, a new pressure, colder than the archive. "What is that?" she asked. Hale's voice was barely audible. "That's not the archive." A new signal pierced the chamber, clean, ordered, alien, in a way the archive never was. A voice spoke, calm, ancient, curious. Unexpected signal variants detected. The locks shuddered. "Origin Soul 3, Layla's breath caught. "Someone else is listening." Hale nodded grimly. "And unlike the archive, they don't forget." The new voice continued. "Request, identification of interface entity." Every child in the room stiffened. Layla felt the weight of it, vast, measured, watching not just Earth, but patterns of civilizations. The anticipator whispered, "This is bigger than us." Layla wiped her tears, anger hardening into resolve. "No," she said, "it's exactly about us." She stepped forward, shoulders squared, voice steady despite the tremor in her hands. "This is Layla Noor," she said aloud. "You're not talking to a system. You're talking to people." The alien silence stretched. Then, "People are unstable." Layla nodded. "Yes." She looked at the children behind her, at Armin's still body, at Hale's rigid stance, at her father's terrified, proud eyes. "And we're worth the risk." Far beyond Earth, something ancient adjusted its calculations.